There are a lot of things I could be doing on this fine Friday morning, but I don't want to do them, so instead I'm going to talk about myself. It's the newbie tag. I think I'm probably going to post this video in a couple of days on Monday, which means that I'll have been posting videos for about a month already, which seems around the right time to do the newbie tag. Why not? Now I have a body of work, so I introduce myself officially. I realized I didn't do the most basic of introductory things, which is to say, hello, my name is Sophie. Good to meet you. Back to the show. Number 1, why did you start this channel? So, I actually wrote about this on my Substack, which seems like this Ouroboros of self-referentiality. I wrote on my Substack about having a YouTube channel. Now I'm mentioning my Substack in that aforementioned YouTube channel, but in short, because I really like watching Booktube videos and have really been enjoying them for about a year and a half, and I got kind of jealous. I wanted to do it too. I felt left out. And then because I want to talk about books, and not everybody in my life always wants to hear about books, so I figure I talk to my phone, and then I let the internet decide, and then I kind of maybe have a little bit of hand-wringing about whether the internet is going to like me or not. Read my post if you want. Number 2, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to Booktube? I'm a singer, a classical singer, opera singer in part of my life, and I'm French, and I'm also a French teacher. I'm also a doctoral candidate in music, so I'm dealing with a lot of words all the time in kind of all of my professional lives. I also edit books, I translate for a French classical and jazz label. So I'm just dealing with words a lot, and I think that informs my the breadth of my interests in books, especially in nonfiction, which might not be quite what everybody else is encountering all the time. It makes me a big lover of words. I love to write as well as to read, and I think I'm bringing a particular sensitivity and maybe weirdness to my choice and my readings, let's say. Number 3. What are you most excited for about this new channel? What are you most excited for about this new channel? That's a better prosody. I am most excited about meeting people, quite honestly, or interacting with people that I already have been interacting with on Instagram. I'm excited to voice my thoughts on books, and having to voice my thoughts on books in some ways. I think it's actually a very good discipline to organize my thoughts, have to verbalize them, have to have opinions a little bit more, and kind of ideally relatively concisely about what I read, organize what I read, what I think about it, make connections to other things I'm reading, and do it for other people and maybe get some feedback on that. Number 4, why do you love reading? I love words. I think the stuff of reading more than really anything else, more than story, definitely, more than fact, although especially in nonfiction, I definitely like to learn about things, but it's really about the stuff of writing. Most of my favorite books are dealing with the kind of metafictional act of writing, of reading, of learning, of communicating. And that's what kind of cuts across all of my obsessions in reading, no matter the genre. Number 5, what book or series got you into reading? I'm not sure. I always loved books as a child. I think I liked the physical fetish object more, or liked especially at the time, because I loved books even before I could really read, and my mother always gave me a lot of books and paper goods as gifts. So probably what got me into reading, or at least into books, were art books that I could look at, kind of my picture books as a child. I also read a lot of Molière with my mother in bed when I was kind of in the latter single digits in age. We would just read through whole plays, and that really got me into reading, I think. And then that also helped get me into English partially, because I started reading Shakespeare with my mother as well, first in French and English, and then just English. So I think plays probably got me into reading first. Let's say that. And actually, I fished out my Tragédie de Macbeth that I read with my mother when I was, I don't know, like 10 or something. And yeah, it has the original English on one side and it has the French, and we kind of made our way through it. So I have great memories of doing that. Number 6, excuse me. What questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? How do you find the energy to edit? I'm probably only going to have very, very simple kind of head-on videos. I really have no desire to do a bunch of fancy editing, and so that's why you're also going to have my and my I'm not going to do like a lot of quick fire editing, because I don't want to. That is just not my passion in life. So my question to those of you who actually are really good at editing, maybe how do you do it? Sure, but actually more than the technicality of how you do it, how do you find the impulse to do it? Because what challenge do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? I think what I've alluded to a little bit in my first answer, which is the hand-wringing of, oh, but am I putting out the right content? I think I can avoid that pretty easily, because I think this can remain quite fun, but I know myself and I definitely veer towards wanting to be respected and liked, etc., etc. I didn't invent this trait. A lot of us have this problem. And so I think I really have to make sure that I keep being unembarrassed and uncringing in my desire to put myself out there, essentially. And if I'm going to be vulnerable, to commit to it, which, again, Synergy, I also wrote about and then kind of had a reaction to having written about it. So I'm obviously not immune. I crashed and burned twice trying to answer number 8, so we try again. Number 8, when did you start reading? I have an anecdote. I don't actually really remember when I started reading, but I do remember my first paper cut, which, or at least what in the narrative of my life I have decided is my first paper cut, which happened when I was desperate to keep reading this book. For some kind of unknown reason, or too complicated to explain here reason, most of my books when I was a child were Swedish, even though nobody in my family is Swedish, but my mother can read it, and so she would read me a series called Pelle Svanslös, sorry about my accent. So that's also a series that kind of got me into reading, I guess, as a child, mostly listening. But there was also another book that was about Lola and her bicycle, and my mother started it for me one evening, and did not finish it, and told me that it was time for bed, and I said yes, sure. We turned off the light, and I did not want to sleep. I wanted to keep reading, so I turned the light back on, and I opened the book, and I don't even know if I really knew how to read, and certainly I did not know Swedish, but I was kind of reading through, trying to figure out what was going on, and I got a paper cut, and then I had this great existential moment where I wondered if I should not do anything about the paper cut because I wasn't supposed to be reading, or because I was wounded and I didn't really know what I needed to do to deal with my wound, I should actually go to my mother. I went to my mother and I admitted what I had done. It was obviously not a problem. And that's what I'm deciding is my reading origin story. I don't know if I made it up, but it's a good origin story. I got into reading especially as a early adolescent. All throughout my teen years, I did a lot of reading, and I really liked reading English and Russian classics, actually, because by that point I was living full-time in the United States, so that was sort of my big focus. I really got into contemporary fiction decidedly when I was at the end of my upper school experience, around 17, I guess, and then I read a lot of contemporary fiction for a few years, and then I really stopped reading when my musical life kind of took off and I just didn't have time or inclination. Kept reading probably more than a lot of people do, but by my standards not that much. And then definitely I restarted reading a lot in the pandemic, I think as a lot of people did. So now I read quite a lot. Number 9, where do you read? Anywhere, really. I read a lot in bed. I read a lot, not so much at bedtime, but during the night when I can't sleep. Part of the reason I just fly through books is because I go through periods of insomnia, and then, what are you going to do for 4 or 5 hours in the middle of the night but read a book? I read a lot in the subway. Also, I'm a New Yorker, and that is actually a huge component of where I do a lot of my reading, like a lot of other New Yorkers. Ooh, there is a helicopter outside. What kind of books do you like to read? I like to read... I don't know why I had to think about that so hard. I'm gonna start again. Number 10. What kind of books do you like to read? As I mentioned, a lot of different subjects, but my big obsession is really books about books and books about writing, books about creating, books about art, and especially from the vantage point of the artist. A lot of the nonfiction that I like is about authors, about cultural history. I do read a lot of critical theory as part of my academia life, although I probably won't talk about that too much here, but also as part of my kind of inner life, and there's a lot of, which is good, there's a lot of, overlap in between my just reading for fun and my reading for school/profession. I love fiction that is also very writerly. I love autofiction. Basically, if I can read a book that just makes me want to read more books, I love it. And finally, my book collection. This is the bulk of my books in one place, but I also have various annexes throughout where I live. Also, these shelves are over full, as you can probably see. They are mostly doubled up or have various kind of stacks around. I'm definitely a maximalist, but hey, if that's going to be my big flaw in life, you know, I can deal with that. May I present one of these aforementioned annexes, my book closet. Oh, I never noticed this was a Verso book. I should read it. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap up here. Thank you for watching. Here's to the Booktube adventure. I'm gonna go teach now. Ciao.